Josh Rosen. That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Josh Rosen?
Yeah. What was that was what 2018? That was like was that him? Mayfield, was that Darnold?
Mm-hmm.
Who else was in that? Anyone that lasted from that class? That wasn't Johnny Manziel's year, was it?
No. They did a graphic of it yesterday.
That's why I just saw something on the NFL memes page.
Kyler was the number 1 pick, and so was Baker. There was like 3 or 4 quarterbacks that came out in like the first 10, 15 picks. And at one point, they were all a bust. Now, Darnold and Mayfield are...
Well, because you kind of have these guys now that they weren't good enough when they were younger to lead, like they weren't good enough to like take over an offense like someone like a Mahomes was, or someone like, Allen, like right out the gate, we can just kind of take over this all. But even Mahomes was behind Alex Smith for a while.
This might be one of the best drafts in a very long time. So, first pick was Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
Second pick was Saquon Barkley.
Oh, yeah.
Third was Sam Darnold. Fourth was Denzel Ward, great corner. Bradley Chubb, number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Nelson, an offensive guard who's a beast.
I know Quentin Nelson. He's in the Jets.
And then Josh Allen.
No, that's Quentin Williams.
Josh Allen, number 7. And I want to say, no. Yeah, was Lamar Jackson in this draft? Yeah, Lamar Jackson, number 32.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and Josh Rosen, number 10.
And that was 18?
Mm-hmm.
Who was the Ravens? It was Joe Flacco wasn't still the quarterback then, was he? So I guess the Ravens just had a low pick then, because I was going to say they were moving on from Flacco, but they got a quarterback at the 32nd pick.
Yeah.
At the 32nd
At the last pick of the
and he's the only one still. I mean, him and Josh Allen are the only
ones
still.
They're shooting
Darnold
yeah.
and I wonder if Darnold and Mayfield are good enough. I know they're having their little resurgence, but are they good enough to like actually make a run now? See, they would have been a good fit for the Jets last year. Like somebody like that, where they've been knocked around in the league, but they have experience now. They know how to kind of just like make plays happen. The Jets fucking looked terrible yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the whole game. Were they just bad, or was Denver's defense like that good?
So I think last week Denver went into Tampa and I think beat them down like 26-7. And then Tampa came back this week and crushed the Eagles. I think Denver's defense is really good. Denver's offense, Bo Nix couldn't get the ball down the field. Right. Even his touchdown pass wasn't necessarily a good touchdown pass, a good touchdown throw. I think Rodgers got sacked 5 times. I think I saw somewhere he got hit at least like 13 times, right?
What happened with their O-line?
So
I thought that was the whole thing that
they spent a lot of money on their O-line too. And then you add that in and you mix with Breece Hall having what you said 4 yards.
Dude, don't even.
And it rained all day yesterday. It rained all day at the game.
The offensive line is like you have no one else to blame. If guys are getting past you, it's like if the quarterback's getting sacked or whatever, is like, hey, the offensive line, there's always if Breece Hall can't get a couple yards, like, hey, they're not making holes for me. O-lines you have no one to blame but yourself if that's where the problem is. If they're just keep getting through the line, like, what are you doing? But
so it was a mixture of just yes, the Broncos being good defensively, but offensively, they ran the ball down their throat because one of their key pieces on defense is missing. But it was just a sloppy game. I don't know if they didn't want to play because of the weather. I really don't know.
I would like to see either like Rodgers going to the Giants or Daboll going to the Jets. Like one of the that's what they're kind of each missing. Because the Giants overall, like their O-line is pretty good this year. Their defense is pretty solid. Singletary is doing what he can, and Malik Neighbors is outstanding. And their coaching staff is good. They just can't fucking take Danny Jones is just not.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless whatever happens at the end of this season, Daniel Jones is gone.
Unless they have some crazy run and like make the playoffs again, which they're not going
Well, they
to.
say he needs to throw. Daniel Jones, to keep his job, even if he has to throw at least 25 plus touchdowns this season, because I don't think he's thrown more than 15 in a season or like 20 in a season.
Yeah.
So Neighbors had a phenomenal game the other night, like 12 catches for like 120 something yards, no touchdowns, but he's able to find him, right? So last Thursday night was just a interesting game because you have Daniel Jones doing what he does, getting the ball to the number one receiver. There were some throws that looked just god awful, and then there were some throws that were great. And then whenever he was trying to find other receivers, it seemed like they couldn't catch the ball to save their life.
Yeah, I did see there was a lot of drops.
So whose fault is that then, right? That's where it comes down to.
Listen, there are some times where if that's happening continuously with like several, it's one thing if it's like one receiver keeps dropping it. But if several receivers keep dropping it, I mean, it might be how he's throwing it. Maybe he's throwing it too hard, or like his spiral isn't good enough where it's bouncing it. There's like a proper way to throw. It's not just about getting it to him. There's a proper way
a lot
to
of factors play into it too, like the weather. You know, if you think it's a little bit windy, then where are you gonna, as a quarterback, where do you are you gonna lead them a little bit more? Are you gonna try and like throw it in the middle of their chest so it does kind of go out? You know, you saw when I went to the Jets game on Sunday, you saw like we were high up at like the end zone, so you really had a really good view of everything. And you saw like when Aaron Rodgers was like throwing his receivers the ball, he was damn near leading them, like throwing the ball to the spot where they need to be every time. And more often than not, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Conklin were catching it. There are other times where, the DB might jam up the receiver and they didn't get the ball. But you could just see that with Daniel Jones, just watching it on TV. Daniel Jones just looks scared. And I don't want a quarterback of a team I'm rooting for to be scared.
You got to be comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah.
You have to be. Again, all the greatest quarterbacks were guys who were comfortable in they didn't run away a lot. Like they were comfortable in that space and time to make accurate throws. Mahomes, Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, like the running style of quarterback. I'm telling you, it hasn't worked yet. The closest we got to it winning a Super Bowl was when Russell Wilson won. He's kind of that, but he's the least kind of that.
Yeah.
The Cam Newtons, look at fucking Lamar Jackson's, like that style doesn't always work. Because if you're facing a really good defense, if you're not comfortable enough to really sling it and you're relying on your running, but they're stuffing you, like then you're, or you hire injury, like look what happened, RG3, Cam getting injured.
RG3's
Cam Newton also has to shut up. Dude.
Yeah.
He does not stop talking.
RG3's I don't know if they were making jokes about this past weekend, but Cam Newton went to the Colorado and UCF game, and he tried going up to Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and both of them kind of shooed him away. I don't know if it was a joke or whatever, but both of them were like, no, not right now. I think he was coming up to them like when you were about to play the game. Yeah. Like
I also think he's like becoming like a media piranha. I think people are getting like everyone. I don't think he has his like little fan base.
Yeah.
But when he was like, oh, if Eli Manning gets in the Hall of Fame, then I should be getting in before him. It's like, dude, regardless of like athletic ability, he did more than you. He played for longer. He won Super Bowls. Like he was overall better.
I think Eli Manning I really think Eli Manning gives a bad taste in people's mouths because he's Peyton's little brother and he's nothing like Peyton Manning, right? And they're both totally different. But Eli did it. Eli won when winning matters the most, right? That's, I think, what bothers players like Cam Newton, because Cam Newton was in his peak, was a phenomenal quarterback, but you're making a phenomenal point. You lose that part of your game, the mobility, and Tom Brady's final year in New England, and then he goes into that system, and he's not the Cam Newton we see.
Right.
He's just an average quarterback.
And also, there's an aspect of leadership and being the guy at the moment. It doesn't mean you're going to throw for 400 yards in a Super Bowl game, but rising up to those challenges is important. And
I agree.
And listen, let's look at Peyton's last Super Bowl game. He was just there like as a figurehead. He didn't even win the MVP that
Going
game.
through the emotions, yeah.
What's his name? Was it Von Miller?
Von Miller.
Von Miller won.
And coincidentally, that Super Bowl was against Cam Newton and the Panthers. And if you remember how much flack Cam Newton got for fumbling the ball and not diving on it.
Yeah.
Like that, what is, some player, I've never played football, so my opinion means nothing. But I don't know how many times I would see Rodman dive for a ball if it's going out of bounds. Anyone. Like really sacrifice your body, because the Super Bowl is one game, right? It's not like baseball and basketball and hockey where you have a series in the finals. It's one game. You look at like Dan Marino, Dan Marino only went to one Super Bowl, right? And everyone thought he was going to go to 1,000. Same with like Matt Ryan. Like, who knows if Josh Allen will ever get there, and if he does, how many times? That was Cam Newton's one and only opportunity, and I felt like, and yes, he was hurt. I believe he was hurt, but I don't want to hear you talk about one of the greatest playoff quarterbacks ever.
Exactly.
Because you guys are not in the same breath.
And Eli understood his role where, like, these were not super-powered Giants teams. These were not like they had, a Patrick Mahomes or like some unbelievable receiver or some crazy run. It was a system. Yeah. You had a very, very solid defense. With, you did have guys like, Michael Strahan on that first team.
You had some great defensive players.
Defensive players, but you didn't have like a Lawrence Taylor or like an Ed Reed. But it was part of a defensive system. And then you had very solid wide receivers and running backs, and tight ends. I mean, you had, what's his name?
Was it Shock? It wasn't Shock.
Yeah, Jeremy Shockey. I don't think he was on that. I think he was hurt in the 08
Kevin
game.
Boss?
And then you had what's his name? The other one, the one that lives in New Jersey. The one who shot himself.
Oh, Plaxico.
You had Plaxico. Like, they were very good players, but there was no like Justin Jefferson on these teams. It was just a really good system where everyone had to understand their role and everyone had to step up a little bit. Eli couldn't be like, "Oh, don't worry, we have Saquon who's going to run 140 yards."
Yeah, they had Brandon Jacobs, but he was a massive running back.
Yeah.
They had great players to fit Tom Coughlin's system. The defense is the same coordinator of Kansas City's defense, right? So Steve Spagnuolo finds, you have your main one guy, which now is Chris Jones, and then you plug and play around Chris Jones. I think that's what they were fortunate enough to have Umenyiora, Tuck, Strahan on his last year. You had these players that were able to really disrupt these quarterbacks. They beat Favre and Brady to win the Super Bowl, but I don't know. I do take offense to it because I'm a Giants fan and everyone thinks Eli is like this goofy idiot who doesn't know. But I think he's top 10 in almost, in most categories for quarterback. So it's kind of like, it's they just want to look at him like, oh, he's Peyton's brother. He forced his way to New York. He was this, and that. But he was a stone cold killer in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You watch that game, the run to the first Super Bowl. You watch that game in Green Bay. I've never seen any, like, I've seen good quarterback play, obviously, because I grew up watching Brady and I'm watching Mahomes now. Eli was just a different breed in that.
And if they built a team around him a little bit more like New England did or like the Chiefs did, who knows what he could have done? Like, those last 5 years were so terrible.
Yeah.
Like, they were
and
terrible.
Beckham came at the wrong time. He came at the tail end of Eli's career, right?
Yeah.
So
and with 3 bad coaches in a row, like the coaching staff was...
And Eli was never one to bomb it 60, 70 yards down the field. Like, he wasn't like that, right? But Mahomes isn't really like that.
Rodgers is a guy who can kind of take over the offense.
Yeah.
Eli is a man who he needs a good strategist, but that he will be able to execute your vision if you do it correctly. Rodgers can sometimes Rodgers can make a bad offensive coordinator look better by just being able to read a situation.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah. Like Nathaniel Hackett is not great because now this is 2 years in a row and now he has all the tools and they're still like how you put on that performance yesterday with 2 very good running backs, an amazing wide receiver, a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like how you do this.
You sound like the morning radio show I listen to. They basically said the same thing. I forgot they have Michael Carter. You have two good running backs, and your
and
running
Allen.
game couldn't. Yes, yeah.
Allen had the most rushing yards yesterday.
Yeah,
he had like 30.
So you have a good rotation. Yeah, you have a good rotation of running backs, and
then you have Lazard and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Like their defense did it. I mean, you held them to holding a team to 10 points is good for a defense. Like you did it.
It'll be interesting to see if the Jets trade for Devontae Adams.
No, you don't need more of that. You don't. You honestly at this point it's coaching. It really is.
Yeah.
You have all the pieces. You have a very good defense. You have one very good young wide receiver and one veteran wide receiver who's good to get you like in those big moment plays, can kind of just have a burst and get open. You have a pretty good O-line, definitely better than last year. You have two very good running backs.
Yeah.
One of them is a definite all-star. Like they have who's the tight end? Kincaid? Is that him? No, not Kincaid.
That's Conklin.
Conklin.
Yeah.
Like you have a very good team. They are not being coached well. I think you put BME or a Dayball in the Jets. I think it's a different team.
Wow.
I want to talk about the cigar for a little bit. So we are smoking the much anticipated H. Upmann 180th today. As many of you know, the H. Upmann 175th that came out back in
2019. Yep.
One of our favorite cigars of all time. Was our first ever #1 cigar of the year, tied with the Dunbarton Tricky Traca that year. So this was very eagerly awaiting this one. I will say it's very, very good so far. Is a tad stronger.
Yes.
Is a little more bold than the last one. And that last one was a pretty strong cigar. It's the Medio Tiempo, which for those of you who don't know, does not come on every tobacco plant. So as a lot of you do know, the Ligero is like those top leaves that gets the most sunlight, the most nutrients. And then sometimes on top of that are some much smaller leaves that only, like I said, they only grow sometimes on some of the tobacco plants. That is known as Medio Tiempo.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're not very rare, but they're much more rare. They're incredibly flavorful, but you can only do so much with them because you can't do 60 ring gauges. Like they don't grow big enough to really utilize in every single way that you might want to. Which is a reason when we were doing all our JR 50th stuff, I wanted a special edition of the 175th, like a Toro size, and they're like, we don't have the wrapper, like it doesn't. They were probably already prepping to try to get this version, 4 years later. But it is very good. It is still. I think this brand, the H. Upmann, we'll call it the anniversary brand, has remained still. I think the pinnacle. H. Upmann. They've done a lot of great work with H. Upmann in the last few years. I think the Heritage from AJ is very good.
Yes.
The Hispaniola, obviously. But I think the anniversary series of H. Upmann still kind of reigns supreme. I still think it might be my favorite AUSA cigar overall. You have that. I think the H. Upmann. I think the Henry Clay Warhawk.
Yeah.
Original for that style of cigar is also one of the best. So some of the best Altadis products have come out in the past few years. Monty 1935 is very, very, very good. I'm still waiting for like a Monte Cristo. I think it's coming. I know what the next Monty release is, and I've seen all the stuff for it, and I've seen what the blend is. I am waiting for that Monte Cristo total smacker.
Mm-hmm. When was the last one for you think?
I mean, the 1935 and the Diamante are
they're good.
Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
I like them.
But
a
I'm
lot.
waiting for a recent defining Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
Whereas Romeo, I think the Reserva Nicaragua is kind of has been the recent defining Romeo. Yeah. I think the 175th has been the defining H. Upmann, the one that kind of you can hold all the other lines in that brand to. I think for Monte Cristo, it's the next one, which I can't.
Of course,
I've seen behind the scenes stuff about, but 1935 for me, 1935 is this. It's a box press. That's what bothers, and that's a super personal thing.
Well, yeah,
it's a box press, and I would love that cigar in a rounded Pareo. I mean, for me, I think it would just smoke better. But it's amazing. It's made our top 25 list several times. Both of them have. But I think this next one, they're really going all out, and it should be something very, very special.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I think when people are, I guess, still yearning over the Monte Cristo White Classic Series, which is a great cigar. Like, I feel like that's everyone's first cigar they smoked. You are, to like what you're saying, you're looking for something that's really from Monte Cristo that's like, all right, well, kind of like what's next sort of thing, right? Because with the Romeo and Julieta, the Reserva Nicaragua, like they made that in a twisted midnight twist.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Like I'm always skeptical with Barbara Pole type cigars. I don't know why. Because to me they taste good, but sometimes I think they're hit or miss. This one I really liked. And then the H. Upmann 175th was, I mean, I felt like we were smoking that every other day. Sometimes on the podcast, sometimes not. It was just something that was like, okay, that really surprised you that year. And I remember when the 175th came out, you said it overshadowed the Hispaniola, which came out I think the same year,
or like a couple months
before. So they had they had two back-to-back really good lines.
That cigar was so good because, like, listen, usually if you want to change perception of a brand, if you want to bring a brand up in price range or something like that, you have to kind of do it gradually. But if you have a cigar that's out, that's usually $6-7, and then you come out with like a $15 one, 90% of the time it's just not going to work because the people who know the brand and usually smoke the brand, one of the reasons they're probably enjoying it is because of the price. And the people who usually buy that higher price point, well, they look at that brand and be like, hey, this is usually only $6. Why would I pay $15?
Yeah.
That cigar was so good that it defied all of that logic. Because up till then, H. Upmanns were mostly 6, 7, 8, maybe a couple of them were 9, and then that was like 17.
Yeah.
So it really defied. I think they were trying to do that with Romeo, with the Envy, and the Envy is a very good cigar, but I don't think it caught on in the way that H. Upmann did. Romeo, there's a lot of untapped potential with that because there used to be very expensive Romeos. There used to, like the museum edition or the anniversaries that came in the red tubes with the gold label, the same one that we had our 50th was based off of. So they used to have an upper echelon of Romeo. Now I think they think they're crawling back up to that. You're seeing like a slight increase. You know, the Reserva Real Nicaragua is more expensive than the regular Reserva Real. So they're kind of creeping back up in
What do you think of the Kentucky Derby? I know it was super limited, but
I don't think I smoked it.
You didn't smoke it?
No,
okay.
I didn't get a chance to. Do we have any?
I don't think we do. We might. I didn't get a chance to smoke it either, but I remember Jim said he really liked it.
Yeah.
From what he said. That was a really interesting. That's something you can do every year because the Kentucky Derby is every year. So if you wanted to build off that type of branding, I think that could work.
I want to see them getting back, and I've said this before to them. I want to see them getting back to using their own two factories. I want to see them using TDG, which I think is going through some changes. But they just redid it like last year. It's the biggest cigar factory in the world. There was a few hiccups they had to kind of iron out. But like I want to see them using TDG, and Flor de Copan is just this Honduran, this untapped gem. I mean, we're going to start doing a lot of stuff with them. But such big potential there. And listen, AJ's got a lot he's doing, man. You know, keeping it to one like limited release from AJ a year or maybe two. But like maybe, plus continue production of all the stuff you've released with him so far. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see them starting to use TDG and Flor de Copan. There's such untapped, like it's such untapped, like you have it there already. Yeah. You have staff, you have a whole facility, you have tobacco. Maybe
I think because they have such a good relationship with AJ.
Yeah.
But I mean, I totally agree with you. I think if you have it like kind of in your front yard, why not utilize it?
I didn't know if he was stretching. I thought he was doing like an Undertaker. Like, dung.
I watched that Vince McMahon series this weekend.
Oh, did you? I was gonna watch it.
I was not really into wrestling when I was growing up, but the amount of stars that would come from wrestling, and they had The Rock in there. They had John Cena. They had a lot of people, obviously the wrestlers who were still with us. They had everyone in the documentary, and I thought it was great. But my one buddy made a good...
Were they all talking shit about him, or were they, like, on his side?
It came across that he, Mr. McMahon, the character, they didn't know where the character began and started. His relationship with his kids, to me, were very weird. It kind of felt like Shane McMahon was like Frodo. Like never wanted to kind of hand him the keys to the kingdom, but he sacrificed his body a lot. I think they tried doing it. They made it look like they were trying to build him up but it was in the middle of everything going on with him now.
Yeah.
They started interviews in like 2021. And I forgot that I guess the WWE sold the rights to Netflix
I guess.
or
yeah.
something. So like WWE is going to be exclusively on Netflix now. So my one buddy's like, it just seemed like it was kind of propping him up and gearing it up for like, hey, we're about to now.
So wait, so they started filming and then all that stuff happens. Do they address that stuff at all?
Nope. He declined his last interview. He didn't show up. So a few of them did talk about the situations because when there's smoke, there's fire. So when one person comes out and says, hey, so-and-so did this to me, it's like the Weinstein. Everyone started coming out of the woodwork because they felt comfortable. But yeah, no, they didn't address. His last day of filming, he declined it because it came out during that.
They should have done a thing then.
I agree.
Because now it's just weird.
Yeah. And it was like the last half of the last episode where they kind of addressed it.
Yeah, it's like...
Because I was sitting there the entire time like, wait, they filmed it
It's like if a documentary came out right now about Bad Boy Records and it didn't mention at all what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
it'd be a little suspect in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
no, that's a shame. I mean, I was always a big wrestling fan. Not like the biggest, but I always liked wrestling.
yeah.
But shame to see, listen, I mean, he was the in charge of wrestling in the 80s and 90s. I didn't think he was a choir boy,
No.
but I also didn't think he was like trafficking.
No, I don't think that.
Apparently, he was like sharing women with like Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, because Brock Lesnar is not in the documentary. He declined to. But I think it came out too that like he was always a cheater. And I hate to say it like that, but like you're someone like that, like you're telling me you're not gonna do that. Like you got to put up this persona. Like I think that's how it is, kind of mainly with like athletes too. Like I think Derek Jeter did it right. You stay single till you get it out of your system, and then
never had, because imagine that, because he definitely would have been stupping.
Yeah,
if he was married. He got married at 22.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that is why he's the captain.
Mm-hmm.
That is why. Did Eli ever get married?
Eli?
Yeah.
Yeah. Eli has a few kids and he's married, but I think throughout his playing career he was married.
He's also not one I would imagine was like macking it in Hoboken.
Yeah.
In the off season.
Yeah.
So we have some fun things coming up. We have some fun episodes. We're going to do our annual Halloween.
Yes.
We'll dress up, and we just got the boxing today of the Tatuaje Monsters, the Monster Sampler, and then we're doing our top 25 earlier this year because it's actually going to be the focus of our November issue of Cigar Magazine. So look for our top 25
a little bit earlier,
which is cool because then we get to spread out that, and then a month or so later do like our end of the year, like our consensus or my Cigar Aficionado rant. Which I'm gearing up for, man.
I'm sure. Do you have any
I have no inkling
anticipation?
Of anything.
Yeah.
I have no idea because I don't follow them throughout the year. I just don't read them. Although the Doble Diamante just got like a 95, so I'm guessing that we're going to see that somewhere in there.
Okay.
That's the really fancy Monty. That's like the $100 one. So I'm guessing we'll see that at some point, probably in the top 10, I would assume. But no, they're gonna get it. They get it every year. They're going to get it again. Until I'm told to stop giving it to them, they're going to get it. I imagine at some point someone's going to be like, hey, you got to stop.
Hey, you just have to.
You got to stop.
Enough.
You got to stop doing this.
They're crying.
People love it, though. It's one of the fans love that. Like they comment. Like it's like
because the fans agree. Yeah. Like you go through our channel and you look at our top 25 videos every year and how we voice our opinions or frustrations on how Aficionado does their list. Very rarely are people like, no, leave them alone. Like, stop. Like, everyone agrees. And it's people closer to our age and maybe a little bit older. But I think that's what the now common cigar smoker wants to see. They want to see a fair list. And maybe they're blowing smoke up our butts, but they're like, they love how we do ours. And we talk about it ad nauseum here, I know. But, I mean, I think a true end-of-the-year list, especially with cigars, let's say, keep other lists out, of other, like, movies or music, whatever. Cigars, like, we may not get a cigar, like, if it came out in 2022, we might not be able to get it till, like, this year. So if we smoke it and it's the best thing we smoked, we'll put it on there. But we're not putting a number one cigar that came out in 95.
No.
You know, we're not.
No.
We don't do that.
Everything on the list
so-
this year is at least the past 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, at most the past 5 years.
But the majority of it was this year.
A lot of it was this
Yeah,
year. I
so-
mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, like 7 things off the top of my head are from the past year. And then a lot of them are maybe 2 or 3 years old, but like we just started carrying them.
Yeah.
So, but listen, you know, the best is the tech. They can't do it in public, but the texts I get from industry folk who are manufacturers who are, you know, are part of like aficionados world, but are really tired of like their system. Them being like, "Oh, dude, that was hilarious. That was a great job.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny and so true." But we'll see what they do. Maybe they'll make it right this year. Maybe they will. We'll see. Yeah. So we have some fun stuff coming up. Maybe some trips in the new year. We'll see. Want to get out of the office a little bit more.
Yeah.
Gonna do a cool event for our other website next week down in Alabama. So
He's going to that one.
Steven's going to that one. Yeah. Yeah. I had to take charge of that trip and get everyone organized and get tickets and
You can tell
That
everyone's
one.
excited.
yeah, everyone's thrilled. So yeah, some interesting stuff coming up. Please, I mean, obviously listen to this one, but go back and listen to the episode from last week with Jack Hare from Camacho. It was an hour and a half of just nonstop fun and laughing. Such a good time with him.
From the moment
yeah,
it start, like we hit record, and one of my favorite moments is when you were like industry legend, and he's like Warren. Like his timing is just so.
do you know who
good.
he is? He's John Ralphio.
Holy shit!
He's John Ralphio. Like looks like him. His cadence, his
Oh
timing.
my god! Yeah,
I got run over by a Lexus.
he did. He did sing a little bit like
Right.
that while talking. Wow! Now I'll never be able
I
to
told him
unsee
that
it
in the
now.
beginning of the trip. He's like, "Oh yeah, I never thought of it." And then a couple days later, he's like, "I've been thinking about that, and that's like really weird. Like that's really spot on. Like I never thought about that before." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got you." But yeah, make sure you listen to that episode. H. Upmann 180th, top marks from me. Very, very good. Like I said, it's a little bit stronger. So if the 175th was a little strong for you, maybe don't try this or try it like at night after a heavy meal, like with a drink. But very good, robust, still very smooth and well balanced. But yeah, definitely a little bit darker, a little bit richer, and a little bit heavier than the previous incarnation of this. But more excellent work from the good folks over at AUSA and Rafael Nadal and AJ Fernandez. So looking forward to their. I'm telling you, this next project looks really, really cool. It looks really cool.
Awesome.
So thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And as always, keep it lit.